Jimmy, you seriously think you're the kind of guy women remember? Janet laughed into the mic as the crowd at her engagement party turned toward me. I mean, let's be real, I only dated you out of pity. Gasps followed. Some people chuckled uncomfortably, others stared at me, waiting for a reaction. I picked up my glass, took a slow sip, and smiled. To pity then, I said, raising the glass. It built the man standing in front of you. Michael, the man now standing next to Janet, tightened his grip on her waist. He looked smug, but his eyes flicked to me, just once, like he was checking for something he couldn't name. I stepped forward. Congratulations, you two. May your marriage last longer than your attention spans. I placed a small black velvet box on the table, right in front of Janet. She glanced at it, her expression flickering for half a second before she masked it with a scoff. What's that? The ring you almost deserved, I replied. But not quite. Janet stiffened. Is this your pathetic little tantrum? I turned to Clara, who stood frozen beside the drinks table. Can you drive? What? I can't drive angry, I muttered. You good to take me home? Clara nodded, stunned, and followed me out as the room buzzed louder. Janet's voice carried behind us. You're still a nobody, Jimmy. I didn't turn, I just opened the door and walked out. The air outside was cold, clean, silent. Clara unlocked my car. I dropped into the passenger seat, exhaling through my teeth. Did that really happen? She asked quietly, hands trembling on the steering wheel. Every second of it, I replied. Thanks for stepping in. She looked over at me. What was in the box? The ring, I said. Was going to propose tonight. Make it official. Clara's mouth fell open. You were still planning to, after everything she's done? I don't know what I was thinking, I murmured. Maybe I thought she'd change. Maybe I thought I had. We drove in silence for a while, then, as we neared my place, I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out another item, a sleek black key fob. Here, I said, offering it to Clara. She blinked. What's this? The car, I replied. The one Janet always wanted. I picked it up last week. Guess she won't need it now. Jimmy, you're giving me a car? You're the one who showed up when she humiliated me in front of 50 people, I said. That deserves something. She looked down at the key, unsure. This isn't out of pity, right? I actually smiled. I don't do pity, not anymore. That night, I didn't cry, I didn't drink, I didn't even rage. I logged into my laptop and opened an old draft of my resume. I started editing. Because if Janet thought I was a nobody, she hadn't met the version of me that was coming next. I wasn't born invisible. But somewhere between elementary school spelling bees and my parents' endless fights about rent, I learned how to disappear. It became a habit. Blend in, keep your head down, never be the loudest in the room. That habit stuck, until I met Janet. We first crossed paths during freshman orientation at Linford University. She walked into the hall like she owned it, heels clicking, lips painted, confidence spilling off her like perfume. She wasn't just pretty, she was sharp, like she knew how to cut people without needing to raise her voice. I was sitting 3 rows from the back, holding my orientation packet, wondering whether anyone would notice if I just left. She noticed. Hey, she said, turning around as the professor droned on. You're the guy who asked 4 questions during orientation, right? I nodded. Yeah. You must really like school. I just don't like being confused. She grinned. Cute answer. That was the beginning. Janet liked me, not in the way people fall in love, but in the way people pick up hobbies. I was her project. The nerdy, well-read, socially awkward guy who never looked her in the eye for more than 2 seconds. She taught me how to dress better, forced me into parties. Laughed at the way I walked, the way I talked, the way I blinked too much when I got nervous. But she never left. And that made it dangerous. Because I confused tolerance with love. I thought maybe she saw something in me that no one else had the patience to look for. That maybe her mockery was just a different language for affection. The first time we kissed, I asked her if she liked me. She didn't answer. She just said, "You're not the worst company." That was enough for me, at least back then. We dated through sophomore year, though she never let me call it that. She introduced me as Jimmy, but never my boyfriend. When other guys flirted with her, she laughed along and never mentioned me. I tolerated it, told myself she was just independent, that she didn't like labels. But the truth was simpler. I wasn't someone she wanted to claim. I was someone she could keep around. There's a difference. Still, I did every thing I could to make myself worthy of her. I joined more campus clubs. I took on 3 part-time jobs. I interned at the same firm where her dad worked in corporate law just to have something impressive to say around her family. I remember one evening, I was walking her back from a debate competition. She had just destroyed the opposing team, and everyone was buzzing about it. I said, "You were incredible tonight." She smirked. "Well, I don't date nobodies." I laughed at the time, thought she was joking. I should have listened more closely. By the time we graduated, I had a full-time offer at a boutique investment firm, while Janet was preparing to go into PR. Her dream was to become the face of a high-end cosmetics brand. Mine was simpler. I wanted enough money to never worry about bills again. She moved in with me briefly. Our apartment was small, 1 bedroom, peeling wallpaper, a kitchen that barely fit 2, but she called it a good start. Things got better, for a while. I worked long hours. Janet had brand campaigns trickling in. We were busy, but still orbiting each other. Until Michael entered the picture. He was tall, loud, wealthy, and exactly the kind of person who never learned to hide in the back of a classroom. He didn't whisper in corners, he owned the room. They met through one of her influencer events. The first time she mentioned him, it was casual. "Michael says my laugh is marketable, isn't that funny?" I nodded. "He's just another client." But weeks passed, and his name came up more often. Then came the lunches, the meetings that ran late, the "you're overreacting Jimmy" comments when I asked why she hadn't texted all day. And then one morning, I woke up to a phone notification. @Janet Liu posted a photo. It was her, smiling wide, sitting beside Michael at some luxury event. Caption: "Grateful to spend the evening with someone who makes me feel seen." That word, seen, punched harder than I thought it would. When I confronted her about it, she just rolled her eyes. "You're being dramatic. It's PR. Stop acting like a jealous teenager." "Are you dating him?" She didn't deny it. She didn't confirm it either. She just said, "You're not giving me what I need." I asked her, "Then why are you still here?" She packed her things the next day. Enter Clara. She wasn't part of my romantic story, not at first. Clara and I met through work. She was the IT manager at our firm. Calm, focused, always wore black jeans and soft cardigans like she didn't care who was watching. When my laptop crashed the night before a major pitch, Clara stayed until midnight, recovering every file manually. "Don't you have better things to do?" I asked. She shrugged. "I like fixing things, gives me peace." We weren't friends, not really, but she noticed things, like how I never left my desk for lunch, how I didn't talk much in group settings, how I avoided office happy hours. She never asked questions, never tried to peel layers I wasn't ready to shed. But the night Janet humiliated me at her engagement party, Clara was there. She wasn't even invited. She was dropping off a hard drive to one of our execs, but she saw everything. And when I looked like I might pass out from holding in a lifetime of embarrassment, she walked up and said, "Give me the keys, you shouldn't drive like that." That was the first time I looked at her and really saw her. She wasn't dressed to impress, no makeup, hair pulled into a loose bun. Just Clara, quiet and real in a room full of noise. That night, when I gave her Janet's dream car as a thank you, she said something I won't forget. "You're not a nobody, Jimmy. She just never had the eyes to see who you are." I didn't reply. But I remembered. Over the next few weeks, Clara and I started talking more, sharing lunches, exchanging quiet smiles in the hallway. Nothing romantic, not yet. But for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. There were no games, no cryptic comments, no need to prove I was worth keeping. I was just Jimmy. And somehow, that was enough. The first time I saw Janet again after the engagement party was 2 months later. I was at an industry summit in downtown Seattle, waiting to deliver a presentation on financial decentralization. I had just finished shaking hands with a few partners when I saw her, standing by the espresso machine, laughing at something Michael said. She looked exactly the same. Maybe that was the problem. She hadn't changed, but I had. Michael noticed me first. He gave me a condescending smirk and raised his coffee cup in mock salute. Janet turned, her smile faltered for just a second, then returned full force. "Jimmy," she said, walking over like we were old classmates at a reunion. "Didn't expect to see you here." "I get that a lot," I said coolly. "Guess I'm still full of surprises." She tilted her head, scanning me. "You look different." "Better?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. She didn't answer. Instead, she asked, "Still doing data models and spreadsheets?" "Now I get people with six-figure accounts to trust me with their future," I replied. "So yeah, still doing numbers, just more zeros." Michael stepped beside her. "We should catch up sometime, man. Water under the bridge, right?" I smiled at him like he was a child asking if I wanted to play tag. "Sure, I'm free, the day after never." Later that night, I got a text from an unknown number. "Janet, you didn't have to be that cold." I stared at it for a long time before deleting it. The emotional dilemma started small. Clara and I had started seeing more of each other outside work. Nothing official, no labels. But something was growing between us. Steady, unspoken, real. She was always careful, always clear. "You're not a rebound," she told me one night as we watched a movie on my couch. "And I won't be treated like one." "You're not," I said, and I meant it. But the closer we got, the more I realized I'd never actually processed what Janet had done to me. Not really. I had skipped grief and gone straight to self-improvement. I built my worth on spite. Every hour of overtime, every new client, every deal, driven by one need: prove her wrong. And Clara, quietly, was starting to notice. One Saturday, she came over with groceries and asked me if I wanted to help cook. We'd done this a dozen times before, but today she was quiet, distant. "What's up?" I asked, dicing onions. She hesitated. "You were checking Janet's page again." I paused mid-chop. "I wasn't." "Jimmy," she said gently. "I saw it open on your laptop." I swallowed. "It's not what you think." "I didn't say it was anything," she said. "I just want to know if I'm sharing space with a ghost." That hit harder than I expected. "I don't love her," I said quietly. "I didn't ask that." "Then what are you asking?" She looked up from the cutting board. "Are you still trying to win a war that ended months ago?" That night, Clara didn't stay over. She said she had an early meeting. I knew better. Days passed. The silence between us stretched longer. I wanted to call her, explain that curiosity isn't longing, that closure sometimes looks like rereading your own scars, but every time I typed a message, I deleted it. I wasn't sure what to say anymore. Then, 3 days later, I saw Janet again. This time, she was alone. She was standing outside my office building when I stepped out for coffee, dressed in a navy blazer and high heels, but there was something different about her. Tired eyes, forced posture, like she hadn't slept right in weeks. "What are you doing here?" I asked, cautious. "I just wanted to talk." "About what?" She looked down. "I'm not with Michael anymore. That's not my business. It is if I say I made a mistake." I stared at her. She went on. "I was stupid. I thought he made me feel important, but I felt like a trophy. I wanted someone who admired me, but what I really needed was someone who understood me." "Funny," I said. "I used to think that too." "I know I hurt you, Jimmy." "No," I replied. "You humiliated me." Her voice dropped. "I know. I should have walked away. But part of me, maybe the part that still wanted her to feel what I felt, stayed." She stepped closer. "Let me take you to lunch. Just one lunch." I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no. I told Clara that same evening. I called her, voice low, heart twisting. "I saw Janet today." Silence. "She asked me to lunch." Still silence. "I haven't agreed, I just wanted to be honest." "Why?" Clara asked. "Because you matter to me." "Then why are you even entertaining it?" I didn't have an answer. Finally, she said, "Jimmy, I won't compete with your past. If you're not done with it, be honest, but don't ask me to keep standing in the waiting room while you peek back into the fire." "I'm not," I said. "I just need to end it properly." Make sure you're not restarting it in the process. I met Janet for lunch. Neutral place, neutral table, but nothing about it felt neutral. She wore her apology like a perfume, thick, perfumed, artificial. I've changed, she said, stirring her tea. Losing you made me realize who you were. I leaned back. Funny, losing you made me realize who I wasn't. She laughed, a little too sharply. You've gotten better at lines. I didn't laugh. She leaned forward. Do you still think about me? I didn't blink. Yes, but only when I want to remind myself what not to accept. That stung. I saw it in her eyes. She reached for my hand. Don't you ever miss what we had? I pulled my hand away. I miss who I wanted you to be, but she never existed. Janet sat in silence. Finally, she whispered, Do you love someone else? I paused. Clara's face surfaced in my mind, the way she'd tap her spoon against the mug exactly 3 times before sipping, the way she smiled with her eyes first, the way she made silence feel safe. Yes, I said. Then go to her, Janet murmured, before she becomes someone else's closure. I called Clara that night, no voicemail, no missed call. She answered immediately. I met her, I said. And? She's gone, Clara, gone from me, and I didn't feel empty, I felt free. Clara didn't speak. I think that was the closure I needed, the proof that I'm not who I was when she left. She exhaled slowly. I don't want to lose you, I added, but I get it if you've already walked away. I haven't, she said. Not yet. The nights grew heavier after that. Not louder, not more dramatic. Just heavier, like each hour before sleep pressed harder on my chest. I started noticing things I hadn't before. The way the silence in my apartment didn't just sit still, it echoed. The way I'd stare at the ceiling too long after laying down, the way I checked my phone, not for Janet, not anymore, but for Clara. For a message that maybe didn't arrive because she was tired of waiting. I had never feared silence before, but now it felt like a judgment. Clara hadn't pulled away, not completely. She still answered calls, still replied. But her voice had changed, like she was trying to protect herself from me, from the man who said he'd moved on but still stared at the past, like it might blink first. I kept asking myself if I'd done the right thing meeting Janet, if that one lunch had been necessary or selfish, if honesty was enough when timing wasn't on your side. One evening, I walked past my bathroom mirror and barely recognized the man in the reflection. Sharp suit, full beard, confident stance, but something was missing behind the eyes. I remembered a night during college when I stayed up writing scholarship essays in a freezing library corner. Janet had sent a text. You're not fun anymore, you care too much about trying. I ignored it that night. But I never forgot it. Back then, I thought I was too much. Too ambitious. Too emotional. Too focused. Now, I realized, I wasn't too much. I was just too much for her. And somewhere along the way, I started wondering if I might be too much for Clara too. 3 days passed before I saw her again. She was sitting on the steps outside her apartment complex, arms wrapped around her knees, eyes staring into the street like it owed her something. When I parked and stepped out, she didn't move. You came, she said quietly. I would have come sooner, I replied, but I didn't know if I was allowed. Clara stood slowly, brushing her palms against her jeans. You look tired. I am, I said honestly, but not in the way sleep fixes. We sat on the steps in silence for a while. She finally spoke. You know, it's funny. I used to think you were the safest man I'd ever meet, the one who didn't play games, the one who didn't flinch. I'm still him. You flinched when she touched your hand, Clara whispered. I exhaled. I didn't flinch because I wanted to hold hers again. I flinched because I didn't realize how wrong it used to feel. She looked at me. Then why do I still feel like I'm walking through the shadow of someone else's goodbye? I didn't answer right away, because that's exactly what it was. Janet had never really left clean. She'd left a mess, and I was still sweeping around the edges, even if the room had already been painted new. I was angry, I said finally. Not at her. At myself, for letting someone like that define what I thought I deserved. Clara was quiet again. She was always generous with her pauses. I don't need you to be perfect, she said. I just need you to not make me compete with ghosts. I'm not asking you to, I said. I'm asking you to walk beside me while I learn how to forget their names. She looked at me. Will it be fast? No. Will it be messy? Probably. Clara nodded. Then she reached over and took my hand. I'm not here for the man who hates his past, she said. I'm here for the one who built something better from it. That night, I couldn't sleep again, but for a different reason. This time, I didn't feel alone. I kept hearing her words. I'm not here for the man who hates his past, I'm here for the one who built something better from it. And for the first time since Janet's betrayal, I didn't feel like I had to prove anything. Not to her, not to Clara, just to myself. But it wasn't over. Janet's presence lingered in small ways. At work, people still whispered. At conferences, her name still showed up on PR lists. Once, Michael bumped into me outside a client pitch and asked, "Still mad about that whole party thing?" I looked him in the eye. I forgot that party the moment she stopped being worth the memory. He smirked. "She hasn't forgotten you." Then let her rot in the memory alone. A week later, Clara and I made our first real plan. A vacation. 3 days. Off-grid. No phones, just ocean and air and silence we chose, not the kind that punished us. She called it a reset. I called it a promise. That night, as we packed, she asked me, "Do you still think about her?" I zipped the bag and said, "No more than I think about the boy I used to be." She smiled. "Then we're getting somewhere." But on the drive to the airport, my phone lit up. Blocked number, one message. "She's in the hospital. Overdose, room 3112. I pulled over, heart stopped. Clara placed a hand on mine. "Who?" I showed her the phone. Her jaw clenched. "You're not going, are you?" "I don't know." "Jimmy." "I don't know, Clara." The words burned. She pulled her hand back. "Then tell me when you do know." She got out of the car. And I was left sitting in the driver's seat, heart split between past mistakes and present choices. I stared at the hospital name on the screen, then in the bag in the back seat, then at the empty passenger seat beside me, and for a long time, I did nothing. I didn't go inside the hospital. I sat in the parking lot for 10 full minutes, staring at the entrance, wondering what kind of man I'd become if I walked in, and what kind I'd be if I didn't. But eventually, I turned the engine off. Not to go in, but to stay still. To decide. That's when I saw Michael. He came out the main doors in a hurry, phone pressed to his ear, expression dark. He looked frustrated, not concerned, like someone who'd just been inconvenienced. I stayed low in the seat, watched. "Yeah, she's stable," he said loudly, pacing. "It was drama, nothing fatal, just another stunt. No, I'm done. This time I mean it." He stopped at the curb. "Let her cry alone." Then he threw the phone in his pocket, lit a cigarette, and drove off in a silver car that probably cost more than my annual salary 2 years ago. I waited a beat longer, and then I drove away too. I didn't need to step into room 312. I'd already seen everything I needed from the parking lot. Clara didn't answer when I called. I left a voicemail, didn't go in, she's okay, but I'm not calling about her, I'm calling about you, about us, please call me back. Nothing, for 2 days. Then she texted, "You need to decide whether you're going to live in the past or marry your future." That line shook something in me, because I knew the answer, but I also knew how bad I'd been at proving it. 3 days later, I got a call from HR. Clara had submitted her resignation. 2 weeks' notice. No warning, no goodbye. I walked into her department. Her desk was empty. Her name tag gone. Only a small post-it on the screen. "Don't chase me to fix something you should have protected." I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just sat in her chair, staring at that note, wondering when exactly I'd lost the one person who never asked me to become someone else. The twist wasn't Janet overdosing. That was just a final act in a story that was already over. The real twist. It was realizing that love isn't lost in one decision. It's lost slowly, in inches, over time, through silence, through hesitation, through half-truths told with good intentions. I hadn't betrayed Clara, but I hadn't made her feel chosen either. I let the ghost of Janet take up more space than the reality of the woman right in front of me. That was my betrayal. I started trying to fix it. Emails, messages, voice notes, apologies. Clara didn't reply. I sent her the photo I'd taken of her note, wrote, "I'm not chasing you to fix something, I'm chasing you because I should have never made you feel unprotected in the first place." No response. Then came the final crack in the mirror. My team got invited to a closed-door fintech innovation panel, top-tier firms, major venture capitalists. Clara had worked months on the back-end infrastructure for our proposal. Without her, our pitch was shaky. I considered pulling out. Until I walked into the conference room and saw her, on the other side of the table, sitting beside a man in a sleek grey suit, company badge reading Orex Investments. She was their new lead consultant, and I was the guy pitching in front of her. I froze. She didn't blink. The man beside her gestured toward me. "You seem familiar." Clara didn't even turn her head. "He's just another face in the market." My hands clenched, but I smiled. I delivered the pitch, flawlessly, precisely, without a single crack in my voice. And when I finished, Clara stood, offered a polite clap, and said, "Thanks for the insight, we'll let you know our decision." Then she walked out of the room like I didn't exist. Later that night, I found her sitting alone in the lobby bar. No clients, no laptop, just Clara, sipping a drink, staring into space. I didn't approach right away. She saw me anyway. "You know you were good today," she said, before I even sat. "But not good enough to win the deal?" Clara shrugged. "I don't mix business with nostalgia." I sat anyway. "You were never nostalgia to me." She stirred her drink. "You made me into it." "I never meant to." "That's the thing, Jimmy," she said softly. "Janet didn't break you. You broke yourself staying angry at someone who didn't matter anymore." I nodded slowly. "You were right. And I didn't leave because you failed, I left because you let a woman who didn't love you shape how you treated the one who did." I looked at her. "Do you still?" She held up a hand. "Don't ask if I still love you, that's not the point." "Then what is?" "The point is, when are you going to stop being the man who reacts, and start being the man who chooses?" I had no answer, so I just whispered, "I choose you." "Then act like it," she said, standing, "or next time we meet, I'll be the one wearing white." She left. And I realized something. That wasn't a threat, it was a deadline. 2 weeks after Clara walked out of that bar, I received an invitation, formal, embossed, heavy cream card, no return name, just a venue, a time, and a note. "You might want to see this. Wear a suit." At first, I thought it was Clara. Some symbolic message, maybe a new beginning, maybe the final goodbye. But it wasn't. It was Janet's wedding. She was marrying Michael. Apparently, he'd changed his mind, again. Or maybe she had convinced him, again. Either way, she wanted me there. And that made me laugh. Because only Janet could weaponize a wedding as one last performance. And only I could be foolish enough to show up. I didn't go for her. I went because I needed closure, not whispered in lobbies, not texted through apologies, not read between lines, but witnessed. The venue was extravagant, crystal chandeliers, white orchids, a runway aisle that looked more like a catwalk than a place of commitment. I arrived early, sat in the back, watched everything like I was attending a play I'd already read the script to. Janet floated down the aisle in a gown that sparkled like frostbite. Her eyes scanned the room once, and when they landed on me, she paused. Just half a second. Michael didn't notice. He stood at the altar, smiling like a man who thought he had won. But I knew better. Because I knew her. I knew the pause in her step wasn't nerves, it was regret, but this time, it wasn't mine. They exchanged vows. He fumbled his lines. She recited hers like a speech. I clapped when they kissed. 2 polite claps, no sarcasm. Then I got up and left before the reception started. But just as I reached the exit, she followed. Jimmy, Janet called. I turned. She was barefoot now, heels in hand, dress lifted slightly, eyes sharper than they should have been for a bride. You showed up, she said. You invited me. I didn't think you'd come. Why? Because you finally became someone, she whispered. And I thought, maybe that meant you'd forgotten me. I didn't respond. She stepped closer. You haven't, have you? I have, I said. That's why I'm not angry anymore. Her lip quivered. Then why are you here? To prove something. To me? No, I said. To myself. Back home, I sat on my bed, tie loosened, phone in hand. No messages, no Clara, and I realized, closure doesn't heal you. It only hands you the scissors. You still have to cut the thread. So I made a decision. I was going to win her back. Not with words, not with flowers, but with clarity. With proof that I wasn't reacting anymore, I was choosing. 3 weeks of silence followed. Until one Monday morning, I walked into Orex headquarters, requested a meeting with their strategy director, and presented a proposal, a merger, not between companies, between campaigns, her campaign. I'd followed her work closely, seen how she built sustainable investment tracks with a new foundation called NovaVest. It was bold, future-focused, everything I'd once only advised clients to care about. But she was doing it. And I wanted in. Not because I needed her, but because I believed in what she built. They scheduled a follow-up. Clara wasn't there the first round. But the second time, she was. She walked in, dressed in a grey suit, clipboard in hand, face unreadable. She sat. Didn't look at me, so I began. NovaVest is changing the game, I said to the board, but it needs new distribution power. We have that. Profit share? Someone asked. I glanced at Clara. 30%, I said. But with one condition. Her eyebrow lifted. That I be placed under Clara's team. A few chuckles around the room. One man asked, You want to report to her? Yes, I said. Because I trust her leadership. And because this isn't about pride, it's about doing it right. Clara's jaw clenched, her fingers stilled. The room fell silent. Very well, the board chair said. We'll discuss. Outside, I found Clara alone by the elevator. You're not subtle, she said. No, I admitted. Not when something matters. She stared ahead. And this matters? Yes. Because you want to impress me? No, I said. Because I want to walk beside you this time, not chase shadows, not clean up mistakes, just walk with you. She looked at me. For a long time, then she said, You're 2 years late. I know. And 1,000 mistakes deep. Counting every one. Why now? Because I finally understand what it means to be seen, and not perform for it. Clara leaned back against the wall. I stopped waiting. I didn't expect you to wait, I replied. I'm just hoping you'll look once more, not back, just forward. We didn't talk for another 2 weeks, but she didn't resign, she didn't transfer. And then, one night, my office door opened. She stepped in quietly. I saw your revisions, she said. You changed the pitch, added equity to the development side. I wanted to align better with your values. Clara walked closer. You're learning. I'm trying. She placed a file on my desk. What's this? Our next project, she said. Together. I opened it. 2 names were listed under lead management. James Lowen, Clara Mayer. My chest tightened. You're giving me a chance? No, she said. We're giving us a beginning. That weekend, we went out of town. No phones, just us. We sat by the lake, skipping stones, barely speaking. Until she said, You still have the suit from the wedding? I looked over. Yeah. You should wear it again. Why? Clara smiled. Because next time, I want you at the altar for real. Our wedding was small, only 30 guests. No chandeliers, no violin quartets, no camera crews live streaming aesthetic moments for the internet. Just a lakeside lodge, friends who knew the truth, and Clara walking toward me in a sleeveless white dress that fluttered against the breeze like poetry dressed in silk. I didn't shake. I didn't blink. Because when she reached me, everything inside me fell into place like the last page of a novel you never wanted to end, but needed to. I used to think I had to earn love by becoming someone else, I whispered as I slid the ring on her finger. She looked up, eyes glinting. And now? Now I know I was never a nobody. I was just with someone who couldn't see past her own reflection. The guests laughed softly, some cried. Clara smiled like she already knew I'd say something. Nothing like that. When the officiant announced us husband and wife, I kissed her like it was the first time, because in a way, it was, the first time without baggage, the first time without needing revenge in the background, but I still got that revenge, I just got it the right way. The day after our honeymoon, I received a call from one of my oldest clients, Mr. Gavins, an oil magnate with capital that moved stocks with a phone call. "You hear about Janet?" he asked. "No, don't really follow that soap opera anymore. She sold off her entire boutique PR firm for scraps." I frowned. Why? Her largest contracts pulled out last minute. Apparently someone leaked that her biggest success campaigns were ghost-written by Clara Meyer. I paused. Someone leaked that? Yep, he chuckled. Guess she got caught using someone else's shine. I ended the call. Clara hadn't said a word. I knew she wouldn't. She didn't need to brag. But I knew what had happened. A year ago, Janet had tried to pitch Novavest to a rival firm, hoping to snatch Clara's ideas. She thought she could twist the system and rewrite the truth. Clara said nothing then. She just waited. And when the time was right, she presented a single portfolio to the Orex board with every draft she'd authored under Janet's firm, without credit. Her name was all over the metadata. Janet had built her brand on stolen light. Now it burned her alive. A month later, I received another invitation. Janet's farewell party. Apparently, she was leaving the industry and taking time for herself. It was at the same rooftop venue where she'd once told me I was nobody, same velvet carpet, same overpriced wine, but this time, I was the one walking in with the woman everyone wanted to know, Clara beside me in a black satin gown. They parted for her like royalty. Janet saw us halfway through her fake toast, her eyes froze mid-sip, the glass trembled in her hand. I didn't smile, I didn't nod. I just held Clara's waist and walked right past. That was the moment she finally understood. Not that I had moved on, not that I had risen, but that she was never the one who saw me. She had been a mirror, polished, pretty, reflective. But Clara had been a window. She saw through me, and chose to stay. The last conversation I ever had with Janet happened by accident, 3 weeks later, in a quiet bookstore downtown. She looked thinner, older, like someone who had finally run out of people to lie to. She didn't greet me, just stared at the shelf. Then she whispered, "You really married her?" "Yes." "She'll hurt you." I didn't look at her. "You said the same thing about success, and love, and ambition. You were wrong about all three." She turned her head. "You think you're better than me?" "No," I said. "I am better than who I used to be with you." Her hand gripped a book spine tightly. "Goodbye, Janet." And I meant it. Months passed. Our company merged successfully. Our name climbed investor reports. Clara was asked to keynote a national summit. I sat in the front row, no longer needing to be the man on stage. She didn't just shine. She invited others into her light. And when she finished, when she returned to the table, when everyone swarmed her and asked what it was like working with someone as elusive, dim as me, she smiled and said, "He's not elusive, he just doesn't waste his time where he's not valued." And I knew. That was the final line. The last page. The one I would underline if this story were in print. Because the boy who was called a nobody, he built an empire. And let the woman who couldn't see him watch from the crowd as the one who did wore his ring.